Hi, this is Érika
And Michael.
from Small Robot Studio with a Nomad Sculpt and Metahumans tutorial.
So this video is going to take you through all of the steps to get your sculpt from Nomad to Unreal to render it like you can see here. However, every step won't be exhaustive, as we've covered many of these things before in separate tutorials. So if you're looking for more information on a specific part, please make sure you check the description, as we've got all the tutorials linked there.
So Michael, let's start simple. What is a Metahuman?
So a Metahuman, if I'm to quote the website, is a complete framework that gives you as a creator the ability to create highly customizable, realistic human beings as essentially a digital double or just a fully customized person from your imagination. They are for use inside of Unreal Engine, which is traditionally a video games engine, but is now being used often for things like cinematics, all the way up to Hollywood movies.
And what else can you do with it?
Well, if you were ever interested in animating your sculpt, so if you've done a humanoid sculpt, you can totally animate it. And your characters in this process that we're talking about here, they have to be people, they have to be metahumans. So we're not talking about dogs and cats and things like that. But if you have got a character that is caricaturized, it will still work using this process. The other thing about these metahumans is that you would note that the hair, the clothes, the skin is all generated. So if you have just got a grayscale sculpt, you don't actually have to do any real texture painting, though there is some limited amount that we have to do to get it to scan in. But aside from that, it creates high quality skin textures, eye textures, and really good hair and cloth simulation. And most importantly, you've got Nomad Sculpt. This next part, it's all free. So you don't have to pay anything to use this. You don't have to pay anything for Unreal or Metahumans. They all work together. You can install Unreal right now. Unreal 5 will work with your Metahumans. And the generation of Metahumans works partly inside of Unreal and partly in your browser. So if you were interested in this and you didn't even have Unreal installed at the moment, you can just go to the Metahumans website and you can try out the tools without even sculpting anything. You can just try creating a preset Metahuman. So that's what this video is about. It's about how to get from Nomad to Metahumans and to Unreal with your own custom sculpt.
Alright, so I'm gonna use this sculpt that I created for my course, sculpting a realistic head in Nomad, which you can find in Gumroad, and here's all the steps. But I'm actually not gonna use the very last one because that one has the hair attached as one mesh. It's merged to the whole face. So I'm gonna use one step before. So here it is, and I'm gonna get rid of everything except for the face. I have the eyeball separated, and there's a few extra details that I need to get rid of, like those hairs that I sculpted for the brows. A simple smooth should be good enough to fix this.
So the reason that we're doing this is because the hair and the eyebrows, any hair, facial hair as well, if you have it in your sculpt, will be applied as a hair groom, which is a simulation of hair at the Metahuman stage. And you can pick prefabs as well as customizing your own, but we'll talk a little bit about that toward the end of the video.
Yep, and I also sculpted this with a very slight smile, but for Metahumans we want to have a neutral expression.
Yeah, as neutral as possible. And in fact, what I discovered is that your eyelids are probably too open for this one. So if we were to do it again, I'd back those off. But I'll show you how I went ahead and fixed that. It's a pretty simple thing to fix, but just if you were doing this from scratch, you do want to make sure it's as neutral, as relaxed a face as possible.
Cool, so the next step is gonna be adding some paint. And this doesn't have to be really realistic, I'm just picking some quick tones. For the pupil, you gotta make sure that it is in a realistic size. Don't make it too small or too big, and there's no need to separate the iris and the pupil.
That's right, actually, and speaking about the pupil as well, that is something that we can affect after the fact once we get it into Metahuman. So if you do put it on your Metahuman, you find it's not quite right, we can still change it.
Yep. And the next thing I did was merge the eyes, which were painted white, the sclera, with the base of the skin. So now they're only one mesh. There's still one more thing to paint, which is the lips, which gotta be darker. and all the cavities, anything that is like a wrinkle, anything that is like deep down. In Nomad, the vertex paint has this depth filtering, which can make the process a bit easier because instead of painting everything, you can have a bit of a big brush and just tell it to paint the things that are deep. And then I am changing the matte cap to be unlit, so there's no light. I'm only seeing the color without any light shadows, so I can judge the painting is as clean as possible. A little bit of smoothing, a little bit of nudging, but yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, in fact, that's the this exact same thing we're going to use in Unreal in Metahumans when we get the identification from the mesh. We're going to use that unlit texture to see where the cavities are. So it's really important to get a couple of things, and I talk about this in the photogrammetry video, which I'll link. You need to really be able to see the nasal labia. You'll need to see the pupils, obviously. Nostrils, a little bit of darkening definition there. The lips, definitely super important as well. So as you can see what Érika did there, that's more than enough to get it to go. So not a great deal of skin tone painting or anything like that, just getting some good separation and value between the important parts of the face.
Yeah, so basically it's only 2 colors. Now it's worth noting that these textures need to be put into a UV map. A vertex paint is not going to be good enough. I'm going to use a different software later on the PC. I'm going to show you as well an alternative if you're working on the iPad. Right now what I'm doing is decimating to reduce the poly count. I tried to get it roughly around 90k. That's good enough to preserve the detail. And something important here on the decimation menu, I am making sure that I put preserve painting quite up, otherwise it's gonna blur my painting, it's not gonna make it look nice. So you can sort of see how it's trying to preserve some of the high resolution, especially on the edges of the painting. And I'm just repeating this process of decimate and checking that it looks good. I look at it with the wireframe, without the wireframe. I try to put the light on just to make sure that I'm not losing any details.
Yeah, and again, in terms of the resolution, this can be up to probably 500,000 polygons would be my guess. Will probably be okay in terms of what the scan is doing in Unreal. It's the topology that you're using from Nomad Sculpt doesn't really matter because we're just using this as a to scan, and the software will scan it and then it'll take the actual topology that it wants and sort of morph that into your sculpt essentially.
Now I gotta say that because I'm doing an automated UV unwrap, that's why I was going for a sort of low resolution on my poly count. But anyway, I did my export from Nomad, I did an STL, but an OBJ will work as well. Just make sure that you select to retain the vertex color. And here for some reason on ZBrush my sculpt was tilted by 90 degrees, but that's easy to fix.
That's because ZBrush's up direction is Z, and the up direction in Nomad is probably Y.
Yeah, though it's not the first time that I export stuff to ZBrush, and it's the first time that I remember doing this.
Maybe it was because it was an STL? Who knows?
Could have been that. I usually go for OBJs. So what I'm doing here is using the UV master to unwrap. This red paint is kind of protecting, so it doesn't make seams there, and the rest it can cut anywhere. This is like a really fast and dirty way to do UVs.
Yeah. And just reiterating, you don't have to have ZBrush and you don't need to do it this way. You can do your UVs in whatever you do them in. So that's, does Nomad do them?
Yes, you can do automatic unwrapping on Nomad, which I will show after this one. This is the way that I actually did it, because I feel that it's more efficient than trying to do everything in Nomad. That's just the truth. PC programs will have some tools that are much better. But of course I'm gonna show you the alternative in case you don't have access to ZBrush. Okay, so now that I have my flat UVs, I'm just gonna take the paint that I already did, but turn it into vertex paint into the actual UV map, which is extremely easy to do in ZBrush. It's just one button and you're done. This is something that you can also do in Blender if you don't want to invest in ZBrush. But if you decide to stay on the iPad, we're gonna go back a couple steps. There's no need to do the vertex paint. just focus on merging the things together and decimating. You really gotta do a good decimation here, definitely before 100k, or Nomad is gonna take ages to do the UV unwrap. So here, like I did before, I am decimating, I'm checking that it's not losing any detail. On the very top left of that menu, you had the number, so you can check how many faces it is right now. And yeah, when you are happy with that number, you can tap on UV Auto Unwrap. It's still gonna take a little while. Maybe, I think this one took like 30 seconds before it was ready. And when it's all done, then export the OBJ and take it directly into Procreate. I'm not really gonna show the whole Procreate because it didn't make sense to replicate the whole process again since I already had the asset. But yeah, just make sure that you are painting on color. There's no need to paint any roughness or metalness. And yeah, export it again. What's a preferred file format for
the diffuse map? JPEG, PNG, it doesn't really matter. Better is obviously always better, but if it's any image format will be fine.
What about the mesh?
Mesh, OBJ or FBX would be ideal. Yeah, OBJ or FBX. I'm not sure what your export options are there. Okay, and then the next part of the process is coming here into Unreal and importing the mesh and creating an ident. Now, like I said earlier, we do have a whole tutorial on how to do this, so I don't really want to repeat myself there because it's a little bit rote and would triple the size of this video, and it's already probably a pretty long video as it is. But what you can see is happening here is this is the sculpt brought in, it's got the texture applied to it, and what's happened is Unreal has done a quick scan of the mesh and it's put some landmarks in based on what it can see, which is from the texture and from the topology of the mesh. And then you can go through and make some edits. I've moved some of the points around, as you can see there, but it's pretty simple and generally it does a pretty good job.
This might be a basic question, but is this something that you can do from the iPad or do you need a PC?
Okay, so yeah, a lot of people want to stay on the iPad forever for everything. This is not one of those situations. So essentially, like we said, we are working with a couple of different software in this case. And for this, you definitely need to be using a PC for the Unreal portion of it. Now, in actual fact, the Metahumans portion is actually run in a browser. So all the computing is done in the cloud, essentially. So that might be something you can do on an iPad. You can actually make a Metahuman from scratch from a prefab. But in terms of actually exporting and doing anything with it, animation, lighting and rendering, importing it into a video game or something like that, you obviously will need to be using a PC or a Mac, I believe, but don't ask me about that. I don't swim in those waters. So once it's finished exporting and you've opened up the Metahumans creator, you'll see your Metahumans, and you can see this is the one that I've just exported from Unreal and brought into the Metahumans creator, and it's just in the browser, like I said. And you can see there's a bit of an issue with the eyes. I'm just going to blend those out there now. So I'm just going to select the eye pieces and reduce the influence from the scan of the sculpt that we did. So you can see the difference there. It's got that little bit of weird error. It's still a little bit present in the right eye, but I didn't end up actually using this one. This is just one I did for the video. In the finished version, I did fix this up correctly, which just required a little bit of extra tweaking on the scan, just moving those points around before it does the ident. And yeah, the other thing that you can do is blend in different attributes from people. So this would be, in this case, as if Érika had 3 parents, all offering different pieces of genes to her. So I'm just selecting a few that might have maybe eyes that I want to just blend in, because obviously the eyes aren't completely fixed. So this is a good way to quickly go in and fix it. So these 3 particular women here, I could have used men, but you can see now just by dragging on these points here, it just moves it slightly toward one of those parents, and you can also blend between the 2 parents. So none of them get exactly right in this case, but you can actually go in and manipulate the points on the face as well, in, like you would in like a video game character creator as well. So you can get a little bit more specific, and I've got videos about that as well if you want to check those out. So yeah, put the skin on, helps, rather than being a grey person. And you have a bunch of different options there, how many freckles the person has, whether they've got acne, whether they're young or old. I just kept the default skin here, so you don't have your realistic old skin on.
So old.
But yeah, you can see here, this is the point manipulation. So you can go in and just edit specific points. Have a lot of photo reference for this. And if you can use PureRef with the transparency is quite good. Check out the likeness video that I did. It's the last video, I believe, that we brought out. That one's got a couple of tips on how to do it. So yeah, you can make yourself look completely different, obviously, if you want, or you can use these tools to get a little bit closer. You can use symmetry and on-symmetry as well.
If you are working with a photo reference, can you change the focal length that you're looking at in Metahuman to fit the photo reference?
I wish you could, but no, you cannot. And I did talk about this, or as far as I know, you can't. I did talk about this in the other tutorial, but I believe that the focal length in Metahumans is somewhere between 80 and 100 mils, the lens. That just means you get a bit of perspective compression in the image, which means that the ears or the things that are further back on the head appear to be brought forward, and it sort of flattens everything a bit. But it's still okay. Ideally, just if you're using a phone and taking a photo of someone, add a bit of, or add as much optical zoom as you can, not digital zoom, optical zoom. And they'll probably get you something close to like a 55mm lens, which is just better than nothing. If you've got an SLR or something like that, then pop your 80mm, pop your 100mm on, take some photos. Yeah, you can see here we're doing the eyes. So you can get the eyes exactly like how you want them, with specific iris shapes and all that, specific colors and whatnot. You can have two different colored eyes, so you can look like David Bowie, except he didn't have two different colored eyes. He just had one expanded pupil. Yep.
Do you feel at any point limited by these controls?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what your target is. Like, what do you want this to be? If you want it to be, you know, cinema quality digi-double, no, it's not going to be that, but it's going to be like a pretty good rig to work with. Well, I haven't even got into the animation stuff yet, but there's quite a lot of great stuff there. Hair prefabs, obviously we can try a couple of different ones. I'm just popping them in here, find one that's similar to your hair style.
Yeah, it's worth finding something that is similar, because it helps judge the likeness. Because I remember you were showing me this and I was like, that sculpt does not look like me. But I thought that it was my fault, that my sculpt was not good enough. Even though I had it like against photo reference, it was pretty much equal. But that's because I'm not used to seeing myself with that specific kind of skin, with that specific kind of hair. Even the brows, the shape of the brows, oh my god, that helps so much with the likeness. Yeah,
one of the things that we often talk about in art making is silhouette. And your face gets a silhouette from its hair. Your head gets a silhouette from its hair. You've got all this negative space created by dark eyebrows, dark eye pupils, things like that. Your mouth, obviously. So these things all add up. But yeah, it kind of gives you the right silhouette.
My dream mustache. Yeah. I always wanted to have one.
Yeah. So obviously, facial hair, you can add it in. A couple of different options, again, can be something that you do manually in Houdini or whatever software you want to use to create the grooms. You can do it in Blender as well. I don't really use Blender that much. I really prefer Houdini for this sort of thing. So yeah, that's sort of the finished product really, straight out of Metahumans, just with the Metahumans options without doing anything too excessively exciting. And I'd just like to take a moment to shout out to our awesome patrons who are keeping the lights on here as per usual, bringing you these tutorials that we put out for free, and we try to make as high quality as possible. And it's through their support that we're able to do so. So those names on screen that you're seeing right now, they're all legends. If you'd like to become one, $5 a month, and you will be supporting the channel, bringing people more tutorials and videos like this. As a reward, you'll get various assets from the different tutorials, animation assets from these Metahumans and Unreal tutorials that I've done previously, as well as sculpting stuff that Érika's done. Lots of cool stuff. What else?
Yeah. expand videos showing all the process of our projects.
And we're thinking about doing some even more cool stuff in the very near future in terms of those videos. So make sure you check us out. Your support, as always, is highly appreciated. Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar, this is Houdini. Just wanted to talk about doing the custom groom just briefly. So this is it here. This is the unfinished version, the one that's actually on the render at the start, and the one you'll see a little bit later on. But this is a good approximation of what Érika's hair does look like. The ponytail needs a lot of work. It really bothers me. But the fringe has the correct sort of sweep, and the hair has the overall correct fall. The detail isn't there, but the overall silhouette is. So we get a pretty good sort of idea of how it should look at this point, and then probably another 20% needs to be done. So how it works in any software when you do a groom is that you have these guides, which you can see here, and they're just sort of a basic version of the hair. And what happens is for every guide, every one of those big tubes, a bunch of hair is generated, and then you can assign parameters to it, like adding frizz or adding curls and things like that. Adding any of these guides, like I just did here, you'll see it just pulls the hair up in that specific area and adds a bunch of new hair. It's a really cool system. I'm using Houdini here with a plugin called Groom. You could also use Blender, like I said. You could also use Maya and use XGen if you're a psychopath and like using XGen. XGen's a nightmare.
Yeah, Blender 0.3 is gonna come with a new hair system where you can already test it. I think it's in beta or something, but I'm gonna wait for the official release to play with it.
Yeah, it's a whole skill. Groom is a specific art form in and of itself. You can see here, here's the one I did of myself. This is not the one in the render. This is from an old mesh. I have to redo it, unfortunately. But yeah, you can get pretty nice results. It does take a lot of time, and it is a very specific art form, like I said. It's quite fun. I kind of enjoy it, strangely, but I never wanted to be a hairdresser. I did want to own an MX-5 though, so maybe that kind of makes me same thing. That's a MX-5 joke. So the cool thing about Metahumans is that it will set up your sculpt or scan or whatever you've done with a really, really good rig with some great facial deformers. And you can see here I'm using it in Maya. You can use it natively in Unreal. You can do it in Blender as well, and you can do it in Houdini. In terms of animation, my preference is Maya. That's just where I learned to do all my animation, so I'm fastest in Maya, but it's more than capable in the other DCCs that I mentioned. And you will have the same access to all the different controls that you can see I'm using here on the face. So it's very, very powerful what they've done here. I would hate to think how much time it took to set this up, but it's amazing that you have access to this and that it's free.
Yeah. Do you feel ever overwhelmed by the number of controllers that you can pick?
No, it's just a learning process. I just think of it in sort of three groups. There's the eyebrows and the forehead. There's the eyes and the nose, and then there's the mouth. The mouth is the most complex one because of the different shapes that a mouth can create, and because of lip sync. You need to be able to create quite a bit of different silhouettes with the mouth. It's actually very complex when you get into it, but it's simple if you're just focusing on your standard visemes. And I think this is probably a tutorial that I'll do in the future, is how to animate some basic lip sync, like you saw at the beginning there. I've already done a tutorial on automated lip sync using audio to face. If you want to check that out as well. So many tutorials we've done, oh my god.
Yeah. We have hundreds of tutorials.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's probably 400, I think. So we've covered a lot already, but yeah, so you get so many good options with it. It's not just the head and face rig. Obviously, there's a whole rig for the body as well. The body is not currently visible, as you can see there, because I was just working on the face animation for this particular one. So the workflow is, and I have talked about it, like I said previously, that all you're doing is you animate the head separately to the body. They are connected, and you can make both visible at the same time, but they are kind of like two different rigs. So yeah, without going into huge amounts of detail, because I know a lot of you won't have any clue about this stuff if you've just been introduced to sculpting. And if you're interested in animating people, I probably wouldn't start on a rig like this because it's way too deep. You could get a much simpler rig, a much simpler body rig, and start on something like that. Just in order to do walk cycles and things like that. Doing performance is a real challenge. It requires quite a lot of study. So if you have been doing some animating and you were looking to animate on a more complicated rig or a more versatile rig or something that you could design your own character of, this is a great option. And I'm regularly blown away and impressed by how good they come out looking when you render them. And finally, here's what the animation can look like once you're in Unreal. This is just with all the animation that I did in Maya applied and lit. And this is just in real-time rendering in the software. This isn't being printed. This is the software breaking and crashing. This will happen because Unreal can be quite system dependent. It will help to have a better computer, and sometimes it can just be temperamental. So better computer, the better. But obviously check your specs and see if it's going to run for you. It does run on a lot of computers, just Metahumans can get quite heavy. In terms of the Metahuman itself, this is what it looks like inside of Unreal. Here's all its attributes. This is probably terrifying to many of you who haven't seen any of this stuff before or unexperienced in Unreal. You don't have to touch any of this really. You can just go and chuck the thing in, start animating on it directly inside Unreal or in whatever DCC that you want. I just thought that I'd show some of the pieces that it's made out of, this terrifying UV map to a sphere.
So pretty.
Yeah, so it is fantastic stuff. And if you're ever curious, I'd highly recommend getting it. Unreal is free. Blender is free. Metahumans is free. There's no reason not to start unless you don't have the hardware. Then yeah, fair call. But if you've got the hardware, if you've got access to it, if you've got access to Nomad already, that's why you're watching this video, right? You might as well have a crack at it or just do a little bit more watching on some videos and stuff. There's, like I said, a few videos on the channel. You can find out how to do a photogrammetry scan of your face and scan it directly into Unreal as well. I've got a tutorial on doing that entire process. So the moral of the story is always be doing cool stuff. It's all here for you. Such a great time to be alive. Like,
experiment and break stuff. We do the videos with all the nice bits, but we don't really show you all the number of attempts and mistakes that we make.
Yeah, and just the frustrations. I know that we sound very incredibly even-tempered, but there's definitely some wobblies being thrown here. So, certainly me getting frustrated and angry at things, but hopefully these tutorials help you guys not experience those so much and inspire you to get in and try some new stuff because, like I said, it's cool. And the more people making cool stuff, the better, because then it means I got more stuff to look at that I think is cool, right?
Yeah, and the more people use this, the more the developers are going to add stuff as well.
Correct. So check it out. I have no vested interest in any of the software, so I don't get paid anything, just so you know.
Me neither.
But Epic, if you want to send us some money, feel free. I will not turn it down. All right, that is all from me. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Michael.
And I'm Érika.
And we'll catch you in the next video.
Happy sculpting!